watch the broadcast later. And for the people that come on that may be new to the broadcast, basically this is a power chat. I come on every week, the power chat, and what I do is I share wisdom nuggets, insights, inspirations, motivation, encouragement on various topics out of my books. Growing on Purpose, Next Level Living. These are two of the books that I've written, and I take principles, concepts out of these books, and I expound on different topics every week. And my hope and my prayer is that when you, after listening to these power chats, that you'll be inspired, motivated, encouraged, whatever you need to continue on the journey that you're on. Hopefully, this power chat can add fuel to your fire. Hopefully, you already started your journey. You're on a journey, maybe a personal growth, development, self discovery, starting a business, a ministry. A family, whatever, writing a book, music. So, whatever your journey may be, I'm hoping that I can share insights, wisdom, and encouragement to help you to continue on that journey. And so, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, today's topic that I want to talk about, this is part two of temptation. This is part two of temptation. Now, before I get into part two, I want to take 3 minutes to do a brief recap of part one of temptation. So before I get into part two, I want to do a brief recap on part one. So in part one, we talked about resisting temptation and overcoming temptation. We talked about in part one how temptations are not tests. That tests are designed to strengthen you, to strengthen your faith, to increase your spiritual muscles, to increase your endurance, your resilience, your tenacity. That's what a test are designed to do, to strengthen you and grow you and purify you. But temptation, and this is, like I said, this is a brief recap of part one. The goal of temptation, we know, is to enslave you and trap you. The goal of temptation is to trap you and enslave you. The goal is to weaken you, to weaken your faith, to weaken your spiritual state. It's designed to make you fall. It's designed to make you fall, to provoke you to give in to your weaknesses or into sin continuously, and eventually that controls you, oppresses you, and keeps you bound. So that is the goal of temptation, to provoke you to give in to your weaknesses and to sin continuously, where you become oppressed and controlled and bound. So that's what it's designed to do. And so if we repeatedly surrender to temptations, or we repeatedly give in to temptation, what happens is it hinders our growth, it hinders our development, it impedes our progress. It becomes a taskmaster in our life. It becomes an oppressor. It becomes a slave driver, and you find yourself bound to it. You find yourself in bondage to it. When we repeatedly surrender to those temptations, they become a taskmaster in our life. And they can destroy again our relationships, our character, what we're building, what we're growing, ministry, business, family, whatever. There are lasting effects, there are lasting consequences associated with continuously giving in to temptation. We also talked about in part one, overcoming temptation. We talked about overcoming temptation, and I'm not going to get into that. That's in part one. But my question is, what happens when we fail to overcome temptation? What happens when we fail to overcome temptation? And that's why I want to get into part two. This is segue into part two. What happens when we fail to overcome temptation and we repeatedly surrender to it, or we repeatedly give in to it? What happens? We find ourselves in bondage to it. We find ourselves in bondage to it. So let's get into part two, breaking free from the chains of bondage. So now we're on part two. I did a brief recap of part one, but let's segue into part two. So once we fail to overcome temptations, once we fail to resist them or walk away or say no to them, we become in bondage to it. And so let's talk about breaking free from the chains of bondage, because everybody's been in bondage. You've been in bondage to something, or you in bondage to something. But everybody's been in bondage, and bondage has many different looks. It comes in many different forms. But what happens when we're in bondage to it? You can be in bondage to mindsets, beliefs. You can be in bondage to religion. You can be in bondage to people, places, and things. You can be in bondage to people pleasing, always needing to feel accepted. You can be in bondage to mindsets, habits, addictions, perversion, low self esteem, insecurity. You can be in bondage to anger, pornography, sexual immorality. You can be in bondage to jealousy, procrastination, unforgiveness, bitterness, hate, envy. So there's a numerous amount of bondages. There's many bondages that we can find ourselves in. And if we don't address them, and if we don't seek freedom from those bondages, then what happens is they eventually impede what we're trying to do. They impede our progress. They hinder our growth and our development. They affect and ruin and damage certain relationships. And so they impede us from moving forward, from advancing to new levels, if we don't seek freedom from these bondages. If we don't seek freedom from these bondages, if we don't address these bondages, then they can hinder what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to achieve. And this is what I know: when we get involved with the wrong people, places, and things, environments, habits, and what we often do is we tell ourselves, I got this under control. um I'm just doing a little bit of this, a little of that. Nobody's affected by it, nobody's impacted by it. And so I got this, until the thing you thought you had control of is now controlling you. Until the thing you thought you had control of is now controlling you. Because the truth is, you really never had control of it. That's the deception that's attached to temptation. That's the deception that's associated with temptation. It makes you believe that you have control of it. It makes you believe that you can do what you want without any consequences. And so that's the deception. That's the lie that's associated with temptation. And that's why it's very important that we take temptation seriously. We take wickedness, sin, evil, bad company, wrong environments, that we don't entertain it, we don't play it with it, we don't mess around with it, that we take it seriously. It's very important that we do that, because what you don't know is you're planting a seed. You may not see anything happening, nothing is being affected. I'm okay. I'm just doing a little bit of this, a little of that, and it doesn't seem like anything is happening. It doesn't seem like you're being affected by anything, but it is. The seed is planted, and every time you give in to the temptation, every time you go into that environment, that bad company, you surround yourself with that influence. What's happening is you're watering that seed. You're cultivating that seed. So you're watering and you're cultivating that seed. And what happens is, in the beginning, it looks like nothing is happening until that seed comes up. In the beginning, it looks like nothing is happening. I'm not being affected until that seed comes up. Until that seed comes up. And now you have a harvest. You have a full-blown harvest, and you feel oppressed, you feel controlled, you feel in bondage to it. So something is always happening. So we cannot afford to keep giving into it. We cannot afford to hold on to bitterness, unforgiveness, hate, envy. We cannot afford to hold on to those things, because when we hold on to those things, what happens is you eventually become imprisoned by it. You become oppressed by it. You're held hostage by it. You're held captive by it. So that's why we can't play around with temptation. We can't entertain it. We can't play around with it, because before you know it, when you're holding on to unforgiveness, hate, past hurt and offenses, what happens is, oh, hello, Queen. Hey, Latanya. What happens is you give into it, and when you hold on to it, and you put those individuals in that prison, because you won't forgive them, you won't let go, you won't let go of that debt. What happens is you put yourself in that prison. You've just imprisoned yourself. So now you're in prison to your own unforgiveness. You have imprisoned yourself to your own past offenses, hurt, and the things that you won't let go of. So that's why I said we can't take temptations lightly. We cannot take evil, bad company, habits, environment. We can't take it lightly. because you look up and then you in prison to it. It has become, it has oppressed you and it has captivated you. And so it's just, it's not worth it. You can't afford to not let go. You can't, because it keeps you bound to the people and the things that they've done to you. When you don't let go of unforgiveness, when you don't let go of that offense, when you don't let go of past hurt, what you're doing is you're keeping yourself bound to the people. You're keeping yourself bound to what they've done to you. So now you're in prison. So you're in prison by your own unforgiveness. So my question is, what's been shackling you? Because I said everybody's been in bondage or in bondage, struggling and wrestling with something. What's been keeping you shackled? What do you feel you're in bondage to? What is that thing that you feel powerless to change? I know we're all grappling with something, and you may not be in bondage to it, but maybe you see yourself on your way to being in bondage to it. Maybe you keep giving in to that temptation, which eventually leads to oppression and bondage and hostage. And so what is it? What's been keeping your mind shackled? Is it thought patterns, beliefs? Is it religion? What's been keeping your mind shackled? Is it people, places, relationships, habits, addictions, environments, company that's restricting your growth, that's restricting your freedom, that's restricting your progress? What is it? What's been keeping you shackled? What are you struggling with? What are you grappling with? What are you wrestling with? What's been keeping you shackled? And we have to be real with ourselves. What's been keeping you shackled? What do you feel powerless to change? What do you feel powerless to change? Is it unforgiveness? Is it anxiety? Is it worry? Is it fear? Because you can be in bondage to fear where you fear everything. You fear stepping out. You fear confronting people. You fear of applying for the next the promotion to the next level. You fear for operating in your purpose and becoming all that you were created to be. You can fear of stepping out, starting that business, that ministry, writing that book, making that music. Fear can be a bondage. You're operating in the spirit of fear. Yeah, fear is an emotion. We all have fear at times. I'm not talking about the emotion of fear. I'm talking about a spirit of fear. You can be operating in the spirit of fear where you handicapped and you feel like immobile, that you can't do what it is that you've been called to do. You can't you can't nurture and establish certain relationships because of fear. Fear can be abundant. You can be operating in the spirit of fear. And when you're operating in the spirit of fear, that's bondage. Where you never jump out and do anything. You don't step out on faith. You don't go for it. That's a bondage. So what have you been shackled to? Is it past hurt and unforgiveness? You just can't let it go. That's a bondage. What are you in bondage to? Is it insecurity? Come on, we can be in bondage to low self-esteem and insecurity. Well, how can I be that? This is how you in bondage to insecurities, where you feel everybody is superior to you. Everybody that you go around is somehow superior. Okay, somehow superior, that other people's accomplishments and achievements make you feel small somehow. That's being in abundance to insecurity. You're saying they're prideful, they're arrogant. No, they're just confident. That's when you in bondage to insecurity, where you're insecure about how you look, your hair, what you wear, where you work, what you drive, the money you make. You're insecure. So you can be in bondage to insecurity where you can't even enjoy celebrating other people because it makes you feel inferior. That's a bondage of insecurity. Or you in bondage to people pleasing, where you got to do things to feel accepted. You could be in bondage to jealousy, procrastination. You never get up and do that thing you've been saying for 5 years, I'm going to do this, and you never do it. That means you in bondage to procrastination. I know about procrastination years and years ago. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and you look up 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years. That's a bondage of procrastination. It could be substance abuse, sexual immorality, pornography, perversion. So there's all types of bondages. You could be in bondage to holding on to some bitterness. That's a bondage. And you're holding on and it's not freeing you. You think you're doing something to them, but they're going on about their business. And now you're in prison because you won't let go of the bitterness. You won't let go of the hate. You won't let go of the hurt. And so now you in prison. You in prison for the things that you won't allow yourself to release. Let go, release that debt. Free them of that debt. Whatever they owe you and did to you, free them of that debt. Don't keep yourself in bondage to that, because it's a bondage. You can be in bondage. I already talked about low self-esteem. You could be in bondage to jealousy where you never celebrate anybody. Everybody's accomplishments make you feel inferior. That's a bondage. Make you feel insecure, make you feel small. That's a bondage. And again, you'll hear people quick to say, oh, they just pride or they just arrogant. No, they're confident. That's a difference. And if you feel yourself always saying people are prideful and arrogant, you may need to check. Maybe I'm in bondage to insecurity. Well, when people are confident about who they are, when they're confident about what they're doing, when they're confident about their walk, somehow it makes you feel less than. That should have no bearing on who you are and what God has called you to do. What is your bondage? Identify what's been keeping you bound, what's been keeping your mind shackled, and confront it, acknowledge it. Because denial never helped anybody. Denial won't help you, but acknowledging the truth will help free you. Denial never, it won't help you. See, if you don't address it, you become comfortable in it. And I've heard this, and I've heard people say, this is just my personality. No, God didn't create you to be that. That bondage becomes a part of them for so long that it's a part of their identity. And I think I'll talk about that later, that I've heard people say, this is just how I am. This is a part of my personality. God did not create you to be like that. He did not create you to be inferior to everybody. He did not create you to wear your feelings on your sleeve. He did not create you to be overly sensitive. God did not create you for that. Sometimes this stuff is connected to some bondages, some things that we haven't let go of, some things that we won't really address or confront. Because if you don't address it, you'll become comfortable in it, and you'll hide behind, this my personality. This just how I am. Stop hiding behind that. That is not how you are. That is not who God created you to be. Call it out and admit it. Because that's the first step to anything, is admitting, so that you can overcome it. If you don't admit it, you can't overcome it. You can't change something that you won't confront. How can I correct it if I refuse to address it? I can't correct it. In Proverbs, the Bible says, when you conceal a thing, when you conceal a transgression, when you conceal a sin, it says you won't prosper. But it says when you confess it and forsake it, abandon it, so you're going to find mercy. That's what the Proverbs said. The word says when you hide a thing, when you conceal it, when you hide behind it, behind, this is just how I am. You're hiding it. You concealing it. And the word says when you conceal it, when you hide behind it, you won't prosper. And that word prosper in that verse means you won't break free. You're not going to advance. You're not going to progress. You're not going to expand. And yes, growth can be painful. Change can be painful, but the pain of remaining the same, I can't even comprehend. The pain of not challenging that bondage, a pain of not trying to become free from that pain. We're talking about pain because it's hindering me from growing and progressing, from stepping into purpose, from doing what God has called me to do, to become who he's called me to be. That's some pain right there. If I have to live like that until I go meet my maker, that's some pain. That's a perpetual pain that I have to stay in because I want to remain the same. But the pain of growth and the pain of change is temporary. At least I know that pain is taking me somewhere. At least I know that pain is leading me to growth. See, this pain here is leading me to freedom. This pain is leading me to prosperity. I'm talking about prospering in my mind, prospering in my emotions, prospering you in my spirit, not even just financial. I'm talking about prospering all of these other areas. See, I can deal with that pain because, see, that pain has a reward. That pain has some freedom. It leads to freedom. There's a breakthrough associated with this pain. There's a next level that's associated with this pain. So I can deal with the pain of growth and the pain of change, but I can't deal with the pain of remaining the same because that's a perpetual pain. That's an everlasting pain until you go meet your maker and know that God has already empowered you to do it. You just got to take authority. You just have to take authority. And see, the problem with that is because when you take authority, you're taking responsibility. And that's a lot of times why we don't take authority. Because when you take authority, you're taking responsibility. See, God, I had to take authority over my life. You got to take authority. And the word says, Jesus says, I've given you power over all the power of the enemy. I've given you authority, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. But you know what the problem is with authority? We have to take a responsibility. There's a responsibility that comes with taking authority. So if you're going to walk in power, and if you're going to take authority over your life, that comes with a responsibility. And sometimes we don't want that. Sometimes we don't want that. Let me tell you about authority. Sometimes taking authority may mean I need to step out and go get some help. That may mean this is how it can hit many different looks. Taking authority over your life means I may have to take the responsibility and saying, okay, I got to go and get some help. I need help with this. I can't do this by myself. You know, that's taking authority, because you're making a decision to help yourself. To say, okay, the God in me, I not only want the God in me, but I want the help of the God in somebody else. Okay, sometimes I need the help of the God in me and the God in somebody else. So I'm gonna take authority by stepping out and going to go get some help. I'm gonna go get some help, because sometimes we don't want to go get help. You may have to go see a counselor. Let me tell you something. God works through every profession. There's somebody called by God in every profession. God is operating in every profession. God is operating in counselors. Let me tell you something. There's doctors on assignment. There's counselors on assignment. There's psychologists on assignment. I can't think of the other word, but there's spiritual leaders on assignment. All type of therapists on assignment. So God works in every profession. Take authority, and if you need to, step out and go get some help. And I could talk about this because I know this. I walked this out. 10 years ago, I took authority over my life, and I stepped out and I went and got some help. And I went and saw a counselor for about 1.5 years. And it's the best decision I ever did. It's the best decision, besides, of course, saying yes to the kingdom and to Jesus. It's one of the greatest decisions I ever made. So I took authority and stepped out, and I got some help. And when God led me to this particular place, and this particular individual, come to find out, this guy, he was not only a professional counselor, but he was a spiritual counselor. And it blessed my life. It helped me. So the God in me and the God in him was a help and a benefit to my life. But if I never took authority and stepped out and felt like, okay, I need help, I can't do this on my own, then it would have never happened. So that's taking authority looks like that. See, God says Jesus has broken the curse of darkness, evil, sin, curses. That stuff has no power. Only the power that you give. When we repeatedly give in to the temptation and we become in bondage to it and we don't let it go, we're giving it power. The more you give into it, the more you surrender to it, the more you do it, the more you justify it, the more you make excuses for it. If you're giving it power. You're giving it power. And God is not going to do for us what he's already given us the power to do. God is not going to do for us what he's already given us the power to do. Because let's think about this. How would that really help? God has done miracles. We know that. Times where it's just beyond our ability. But how does it really help when God just come, woof, magically just take it away and just wipe it out, God? How does that really help us? You know what? We get right back into it. You know why? Because it didn't cost you nothing. It didn't cost you nothing. But when that thing costs you something, when you have to weep and cry, when you have to pray, when you have to resist it and say no and walk away, when you have to overcome it every day, when you have to rest on the grace that's in you, and when you have to continuously say no and walk that thing out and change your mindset and your behavior, see, that costs you something. And now you, guess what? You have the power to stay free from it because it costs you something. But if God just come and whoop, take it away, and I'm not saying he hasn't done that on occasion, but a lot of times, most people, you're going to walk that thing out because you appreciate it more and you're less likely to go back into it because it cost you something. It cost you. You had to walk that thing out. And so God would not do for us when he's already given us the power to do it. Activate your power. Walk out the word. Walk in truth. Take authority. And oftentimes we're just waiting on God. Well, I'm waiting on God to free me. I'm waiting on God to do it. I'm waiting on God to get me out of this. I'm waiting on God to take it away. And God is waiting on you to lay it down. God is waiting on you to lay it down, to forsake it, to abandon it, and walk away from it because his grace is sufficient. Make a decision. Make a decision. Make a decision to abandon old thought patterns, behaviors, environments, and habits and relationships that are no longer working for you. Make a decision. That's how you take authority. Make a decision. Make a decision to abandon those things that are not working for you. If it's not growing you, it's diminishing you. If it's not growing you, it's diminishing you. I've learned that issues just don't go away. They don't just vanish or disappear. They don't automatically go away. I don't care how much you ignore it, how much you suppress it, you run away from it, you deny it. It's not going away. I don't care how much you suppress it, how much you ignore it, how much you deny it. It's not going away. You got to address it on purpose. You got to be intentional about it, because if you don't address it, it's going to manifest in other areas of your life. That's a guarantee. If you don't address it, what's going on with you, you don't make a decision to abandon the thought patterns, behaviors, environments, the people, the relationship that are no longer working for you, it's going to show up in other areas of your life, in your emotional health. It can manifest in your physical health. It can manifest in your family and your relationship with your family, your loved ones. You know, it can manifest in your character and manifest in how you interact with people. But that thing is going to manifest. So how do I break free from it? Well, number one, you got to admit it. I talked about that. You got to admit, I got something going on. I'm in bondage to this thing. This thing is keeping me bound. I can't stop cussing. I can't get my anger under control. I can't just let it go. I'm always insecure. I'm walking around in fear. Whatever your bondage is, admit, I'm wrestling with this. Don't act like it's there. I'm not, I know I'm going to speak it. I'm no longer, just saying you no longer in it is not going to make it go away. That's denial. That's denial. Admit it so that you can overcome it. Take authority. Admit it and take authority. The next one is renew your mind. See that old way of thinking, the old program. You're going to have to replace the old information with new information, because the old information hadn't been working for you. The way your thought, your mind is working, the way your thought patterns are right now, it may not be working for you. So you're going to have to replace old information with new information. That means you're going to have to reprogram your thinking. That old program is not working, so we got to renew our mind. And when you renew your mind, act out on that truth. Act it out, walk it out. So now you're creating a new mindset, which brings transformation. But you got to be a doer. You just can't hear it. You just can't know it and not do it and think you're going to see transformation. You just can't know it and not do it and think you're going to see transformation. You got to be a doer. You got to activate it. The way you activate the truth, the way you activate the new information you have, is you walk it out. You walk in. You do it. Just knowing it is not enough. Just knowing it is not enough. You know how many people know better, but they won't do better? They know better, but they won't do better. It's one thing when you don't know and you have to renew your mind and start changing your mindset. But when you know better and you don't do better, shame on you. We have a responsibility. When we know better, let's do better, so we can help other people that's attached to us, connected to us in other generations. So just knowing is not enough. That's why I always say it's not that when you know better, you do better, but when you know better, you have an opportunity to do better. Because there's people that know better, but they won't do better. They keep getting the information, they know it, but they won't do better. So you got to act on it. You got to practice it. The word is just not spiritual. It's also practical. You practice it. The word is not just spiritual. It's also practical. You practice it. You got to work it out. Faith without works is useless. The truth will work if you work it. Otherwise, you're going to remain the same. The truth will work if you work it. Otherwise, you're going to remain the same. Deceiving yourself, thinking I can just know better and I can know the truth, but I don't have to do better. You're deceiving yourself. You think you can know better and not do better and still be transformed? That's deception. That's why I love that quote that says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. That means you got to act on that thing. You got to act on the new knowledge that you have. Otherwise, you're deceiving yourself. The word says be a doer and not a hearer only. Otherwise, you are deceiving yourself. You're misleading yourself. You're lying to yourself. If you think you can know something, speak it, confess it, declare it, and never work it out and never put effort in, you are deceived. You are deceived. If you're going to take dominion over your life, if you're going to take dominion over circumstances and situations, because God said take dominion, right? Then you're going to have to walk out that truth. You have to walk out your faith. You have to operate and walk out your faith. Because if you don't renew your mind and walk out your faith, if you don't renew your mind and walk out your faith, then those bondages, whatever your bondages is, whatever your bondages are, whatever that bondage is, you're going to allow it to consume you. Whether it's addiction, jealousy, unforgiveness, whatever your bondage is, anger, cussing, whatever, pornography, sexual immorality, you're going to allow it to consume your life. And that bondage becomes a deficiency in your life. What happens is when you never address it, when you never renew your mind to it, when you don't walk in the truth that you know, be a doer of what you know, then the bondages will consume your life. And they become deficiencies. They become weaknesses and deficiencies in your life. And then they begin to alter your perception. They begin to alter your perception. And when your perception is off, your decision making is off. When your perception is off, your decision making is off. So now your perceptions are tainted. They're corrupted. Because now these bondages have turned into deficiencies. So your decision making is off. The bondage is a deficiency. The deficiency has caused your perception to be off. And when your perceptions are off, your decision making is off. And now your life is off. And that's how it happens. Because remember, you're making decisions based on how you see. You're making decisions based on your perception. And if the deficiencies have affected your perception, now your decisions are filtered through that perception. Your decisions are filtered through how you see life, how you see the world. So your perception is off, your decision making is off, now your life is off. How you see is off. Everything you do, your decisions are filtered through that bondage, filtered through that deficiency. You're making decisions and interacting with people through the lenses of abandonment or abuse, through unforgiveness, whatever addiction, whatever your bondage is. There's so many bondages out there. And so now you're looking at life and other people and situations through the lenses of that hurt, through the lenses of that unforgiveness. Because your perception is off. Now you don't trust anybody. Why? Because you're still looking through the lenses of unforgiveness and bitterness. Your decision is filtered through that lens. And so now you're looking at this person through those lenses and you don't trust them because you never let that go. And it has become abundant in your life. It has altered your perception because it's a deficiency, and deficiencies alter your perception. So it's altered the way you see things, ultimately affecting the way you live and how you conduct your life. See, if we get free from the bondage, then our perceptions are on track and our decision making is on track and now our life is on track. But something has to change. Your mind has to be renewed so that you can see differently, so that your perception can be different. Your mind has to be renewed. When you change how you see, you change what you do. When you change how you see your perception, you change what you do, and then you make different decisions. I'm going to say that again. When you change how you see, you change what you do, and now you can make different decisions. How you see is your perception. How you think determines how you see. That deficiency is that bondage, and that deficiency is determining how you see, your perception in life. And it's dictating your decisions. Whether you realize it or not, it's dictating your decisions. So now this has become your way of life. Remember, the word says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's your mindset. So you become your mindset, and this is your way of life. My life is just a reflection of my mindset. So I'm going to have to renew my mind first if I'm going to be free from these bondages. If I'm going to walk away and be free and walk in freedom, I'm going to have to renew my mind. because my life is a reflection of my mind. What's in my mind determines how I see things. It determines my perception, how I interact with people, how I respond and react to other people. And sometimes we can be in these bondages for so long that they become a part of us. They become a part of our identity. So now you're living out an altered identity. You're living out of an altered identity. That's not you. That's not who God's created you to be. But you've been in that bondage for so long that it's altered who you are. It has altered your identity. And you're saying this is just the way I am, but you're really living in an altered identity. That's not your identity. That's not your divine identity. That's not who God created you to be. So examine yourself. What areas in your life are shackled? What areas in your life are in bondage? What bondage are you wrestling with? Is it unforgiveness? You don't forgive people. Is it you easily offended? Is it insecurity? You fearful all the time? What is your bondage? And I told you with fear, you can be fearful. We all experience fear, but I'm talking about walking in a spirit of fear. That's a bondage. When you're walking in a spirit of fear, you're fearful of everything. You can't even confront somebody that's mistreating you because you fear. What you fear, I don't know, but you fear. That's a bondage. So examine the areas in your life that you're trying to be free of, and be honest with yourself and be real with yourself and address it, acknowledge it. Because I told you before, denial never helped anybody. Denial won't help you, but acknowledging the truth can help free you. So examine it and be honest with yourself and take authority. If you need to step out and get outside help, I told you God works in every profession. There's counselors on assignment. There's doctors on assignment. There's psychiatrists on assignment. There's therapists that are on assignment. God got his callings are in every profession. There's people called in every profession. If you need to step out and get some help, that's you taking authority over your life. That's what that is. You're taking responsibility. He's giving you the authority. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's something you feel powerless to change and you need a little help. I need the God in me and I need the God in you. So I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna step out and get help. Some people may need that. There's nothing wrong with that. At least they're taking authority and taking responsibility for their change and transformation. Well, I'm going to go. I hope this word has been a blessing to you. Thank you for tuning in. Let me bless you before I go. If it did bless you, of course, share it. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May his favor be upon your life, and may his peace travel with you and be with your family for generations to generations. I love you, and I'll see you next week. Bye.